On Christmas Eve, my sister Chloe shot a smirk across the dinner table, her eyes glittering with a familiar, cruel amusement. Perhaps Elena could ask Mr. Harrison about an opening in the mailroom. It's real work, at least. The words sliced through the festive drone of Christmas carols, landing like a punch to my gut. Laughter bubbled up from my brother-in-law, David. My parents, positioned at the head of the table like monarchs on their thrones, said nothing. Their silence, as always, was a condemnation far louder than any laugh. My hands clutching my knife and fork started to tremble. I squeezed the silverware, my knuckles turning white, willing the shaking to stop, but it refused. Before we get into all of it, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. I'm always amazed to see how far these stories can reach. The atmosphere in the dining room felt heavy, thick not just with the scent of roasted ham and pine, but with the stench of old resentments. It was the smell of my designated place in this family, a spot carefully carved out far beneath everyone else. I drew a slow, deliberate breath, fixing my gaze on the centerpiece, a gaudy plastic poinsettia arrangement. It was a cheap imitation of life, a perfect metaphor for the joy in this house. My mother, her face a carefully constructed mask of civility, finally broke the quiet. Her voice, when it came, was colder than the winter air outside. "The guest room is for Sarah. She's pregnant and needs her rest." She paused, her eyes, which could be so warm for others, were flat and hard when they met mine. "The garage is all set up for you, Elena." My heart, which had been struggling to maintain a steady rhythm, faltered. Then it began to hammer against my ribs. It wasn't just her words, it was the delivery. It was the collective gaze of my family turning towards me, a pack of wolves waiting for the wounded animal to show weakness. My father cleared his throat, his eyes glued to his plate. Chloe let out a faint, satisfied sigh. David offered a small, dismissive shrug. My other sister, Sarah, the expectant mother, studied her hands in her lap. Her silence had always been her contribution to the family sport of belittling me. They all stared, waiting. They were always waiting for me to break, for my eyes to flood with tears, for my voice to crack with hurt. They craved the drama, the proof that their barbs still found their mark. For so many years, I had given them exactly what they wanted. I had cried, I had screamed, I had pleaded for them to understand. It never worked. It only emboldened them, solidifying their belief that they were right about me. But this time, I didn't crumble. Something deep inside me had shifted. It was a slow, quiet erosion of my old self, a river of resolve carving a new canyon through my soul. And that canyon was now deep and wide. I scanned the faces around the table, saw their smug anticipation, and a strange sense of calm washed over me. It wasn't numbness. It was a new, unshakable strength. It was the power of knowing a truth they couldn't even begin to imagine. Instead of tears, I offered a smile. It was small and polite, a smile that never reached my eyes, but it was enough to disrupt their game. I gave a slight nod, as if sleeping in a freezing garage amidst cobwebs and forgotten junk was the most normal thing in the world, as if it was precisely where I belonged. And in a strange way, it was. I had finally stopped hoping for anything more from them. "Of course, Mom," I said, and my voice was a revelation, steady, clear, and utterly devoid of the tremor they expected. "Sarah needs to be comfortable. I completely understand." My mother's brow twitched. This wasn't the script. Chloe's triumphant smirk wavered, her victory suddenly feeling hollow without my defeat to sweeten it. My father finally glanced up, his gaze meeting mine for a split second before darting away. He looked uncomfortable. Good. The dinner conversation slowly resumed, but the energy had shifted. A small stone had been dropped into their placid pond of cruelty, and the ripples were just beginning to spread. I ate my ham. I made small talk about my art classes, about the middle schoolers I taught. I kept my voice even and my expression neutral. Inside, a storm was gathering, but it was a storm of pure, cold purpose. I had accepted my place in their garage, but I was about to show them my true place in the world, and it was nowhere they could have ever conceived. What they didn't know was that the entire modest art teacher persona was a carefully crafted illusion. It was a costume I wore for them, a shield against their judgment. For the past 5 years, while they were busy pitying me, I had been quietly, relentlessly building an empire. I had founded Apex Dynamics. It wasn't just a company, it was a global force in tech and logistics. I had started it with my own savings, fueled by their dismissal and countless sleepless nights. I built it with my own 2 hands, my own mind, my own unyielding will. It was my most precious secret, a truth so far beyond their comprehension they would never, ever suspect it. They saw Elena, the quiet sister, the one who dabbled in art, who probably struggled with rent, the one who should be grateful for a mailroom job. That was the version of me they needed to see, the one they had created to make themselves feel superior. And for years, I had let them. It used to be a painful lie, but now it was my greatest weapon. The name Apex Dynamics was whispered with reverence in boardrooms across the globe. Its growth was legendary, its strategies were taught in business schools, its acquisitions were aggressive and groundbreaking. And just last year, Apex Dynamics had acquired Harrison Industries. Mr. Harrison, the man currently sitting at this very table, smiling warmly at Chloe, who believed she was a rising star at his company. The irony was so thick I could taste it, a bitter flavor mixed with the sweet promise of impending justice. The final phase of the acquisition was happening tomorrow. It was a massive deal, the last piece of a complex puzzle that would solidify Apex's dominance. And it all hinged on a single signature, my signature as the CEO of Apex Dynamics, the elusive phantom CEO that no one in the public had ever seen, the CEO who was currently eating overcooked ham in her parents' dining room, the CEO who was about to be banished to their garage. The contrast was so stark it was almost funny. Here, I was the family footnote, the one who didn't measure up, the one relegated to the cold. Out there, in the real world, I was a force of nature. I commanded respect. My decisions impacted thousands of families, billions of dollars. I wielded immense power. It was a strange, bifurcated existence. I thought about the beginning of Apex, the tiny, cramped apartment, the secondhand laptop, the constant gnawing fear of failure that I used as fuel, the doubt from everyone. "Aren't you happy just being a teacher, Elena?" they'd ask. "It's a stable career. Stable." To me, that word always sounded like the clanging of a cage door. My family had always championed the safe route, the predictable path they could understand and therefore control. My part-time teaching job was their idea of a suitable, non-threatening career for me, but I had always craved more. I wanted to build, to create, to prove something. Not to them, not anymore, but to myself. The idea for Apex sparked from a deep frustration with the inefficiencies I saw everywhere. I saw gaps in the market, opportunities where others saw only obstacles. I started with one client, then 2. I found a team of brilliant, hungry people who believed in my vision, people who didn't know or care about my family's opinion of me. They cared about results. The growth was explosive. We faced down near failures, moments of crushing pressure, but each time I pushed through, adapted, and emerged stronger. The quiet, timid girl they remembered from college was gone, replaced by a leader, a strategist, a woman who made multi-million-dollar decisions without blinking. I remember the day the main Harrison deal closed. It was a Friday. My lead counsel, Marcus, called me. "It's done, Elena," he'd said, his voice electric. "Harrison Industries is now part of the Apex portfolio." I had been sitting in my sleek corner office, looking out over the Chicago skyline as the city lights began to sparkle. A vast, endless sea of ambition. And I, Elena Vance, owned a significant piece of it. That night, I didn't celebrate with champagne. I ordered a pizza and sat on my sofa, just looking out at the city. It was a moment of profound accomplishment, tinged with a quiet loneliness. There was no one I could share it with, no one who could truly grasp the journey. My family would never know. And a part of me had made peace with that. Their understanding always came with conditions, their approval with strings attached, so I kept my secret. I maintained my two separate lives. Elena, the humble teacher visiting for the holidays, and Elena Vance, the CEO, about to sign off on a 9-figure deal. And the man whose corporate world I now owned was sitting just a few feet away, completely oblivious. The silent power of that knowledge was a steady current, humming just beneath my skin. It was my secret weapon. It was my revenge, not a loud, messy affair, but a quiet, cold, satisfying victory built on my own success. A victory they would never see coming. Tomorrow the final domino would fall, and my signature was the finger that would push it. After dinner, the forced cheer had worn thin. It was time for the next part of my public humiliation. Chloe, ever the ringleader, took charge with theatrical brightness. "Come on, Elena," she said, her voice dripping with saccharine sarcasm. "Let me show you to your luxury suite." She gestured toward the door leading to the garage. I followed, my spine straight, my posture as rigid as the mask I wore. The garage was frigid. It smelled of motor oil, dust, and decay. Chloe flicked on a single bare bulb that cast long, grotesque shadows. And there it was, my room. A flimsy camping cot wedged between teetering stacks of storage bins filled with their discarded lives. Old golf clubs leaned against a wall, and faded Christmas decoration boxes were piled high. A tiny space heater, no bigger than a shoebox, hummed pathetically in a corner, its weak orange glow a futile gesture against the vast concrete cold. Charming, isn't it? Chloe's voice was a low, conspiratorial whisper, as if we were sharing an inside joke. "Mom thought it would be perfect for you. You always liked roughing it, right?" She let out a small, brittle laugh, devoid of any real humor. It was a verbal jab meant to sting, and it did, but only faintly. I had been pricked by their needles so many times that I was covered in scar tissue. I looked at the cot, the thin mattress, the single, scratchy-looking blanket. This was their honest assessment of my worth. I was spare parts, an inconvenience to be stored with the other junk, out of sight, out of mind. It had always been this way. I remembered being 12 and spending weeks crafting a ceramic vase for my mother in art class. On Christmas morning, after everyone else opened expensive electronics and designer clothes, she opened my gift. "Oh, Elena," she'd said with a tight smile. "How creative." It sat on a shelf for a week before disappearing. I later found it shattered in a box in the attic. My effort, my love, broken and discarded. Another year, I won a statewide writing competition. I was bursting with pride. At dinner, Chloe rolled her eyes. "Who cares about an essay, Elena? Sarah just got her early acceptance to medical school." My father grunted, "Good for you, kid," before asking for the salt. My achievements were always footnotes to their main stories. "Dinner's at 7 tomorrow," Chloe said, snapping me back to the present. Her voice was smug, triumphant. "It's formal, so try not to track any filth from your accommodations into the house." She glanced around the dusty floor, the unspoken message clear. "You are dirt. You are beneath us. Don't contaminate our perfect lives." A surge of cold, clear determination flooded me. They wanted to make me feel small and worthless, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. They saw only the ghost of the girl they had always pushed aside. "I'll be sure to wipe my feet," I replied, my voice dangerously calm. Her smile tightened. She wanted a fight, tears, a reaction of any kind. I gave her nothing but a direct, unwavering stare, empty of anger, full of resolve. After a moment of her lingering, Hoping for a crack in my composure, she let out a theatrical sigh. "Fine. See you tomorrow." She pulled the door shut behind her, and the click of the latch echoed in the cold. It wasn't really locked, but it felt like it, a final declaration of my exile. I stood there in the dim light, the pathetic heater buzzing its lonely song. I looked at the cot. It was an insult, but in this small, cold space, a plan that had been simmering for weeks began to boil. They wanted me in the garage? Fine. But they had no idea the power that was brewing here, among the dust and the forgotten things. Just like me. I was the forgotten one. But I was about to give them a reminder they would never, ever forget. The moment the garage door clicked shut, my calm facade shattered. The chill wasn't just physical anymore. It was the bone-deep cold of their lifelong indifference. For a second, the old feelings, the loneliness, the hurt, threatened to overwhelm me. But then, something else roared to life. The familiar fire that had been stoked by years of their neglect. The very fire that had forged Apex Dynamics. I pulled out my phone. The screen's glow felt like a portal to my real life. Instantly, the notifications flooded in. 3 urgent emails from my executive board. One from Marcus, my lead counsel. One from Isabel, my head of global operations. And one from Leo, my CFO, all marked urgent, CEO attention required. The subject lines were a symphony of high-stakes business, Harrison acquisition, final hurdles, synergy reports, immediate review, and Q4 projections. Input essential. I opened Marcus's email. It was a detailed breakdown of the final legal obstacles to acquiring the last subsidiary of Harrison Industries. This final piece was critical for full integration and would cement our absolute dominance in the market. Marcus mentioned Mr. Harrison by name several times. The man had apparently been begging for a meeting with the elusive CEO of Apex, desperate to renegotiate terms, to salvage some piece of his crumbling legacy. He had no idea I was the one he was dealing with, that I already owned his world. A text message from my assistant Nina popped up, marked high priority. She was brilliant, fiercely loyal, and the gatekeeper of my secret identity. Mr. Harrison's office has called 5 times in the last hour. He's insisting on an immediate meeting with you regarding tomorrow's signing. He says it's critical. Should I maintain the cover story that you're in Zurich for the European launch? I paused, my thumb hovering over the screen. A slow, genuine smile spread across my face, a warm burn of satisfaction igniting in my chest. This was it. The game was truly afoot. "Yes," I typed back. "Maintain the Zurich story. Let him sweat." I hit send. The message shot across the globe, a digital arrow aimed straight at the man who had just watched me be banished to a garage. I leaned back against a stack of dusty Christmas boxes. A plastic reindeer antler poked me in the shoulder, but I barely noticed. My mind was already 3 steps ahead, strategizing. The pieces were all in motion, and I was holding the queen. I scrolled through the other emails. Isabel had minor logistical issues. Leo's projections were solid, but needed my final approval. Everything was running like the well-oiled machine I had designed. A machine that functioned perfectly, whether its CEO was in a penthouse office or a cold garage in suburban Ohio. The sheer absurdity of it all was dizzying. The petty family drama on one side and this vast, intricate world of global mergers on the other. For so long, they had only been allowed to see one side of my life. I thought about Mr. Harrison. He had been a respectable businessman, but he grew complacent, slow to adapt. Apex had seen the weakness and moved with surgical precision. Now he was scrambling, feeling the kind of pressure I knew intimately, the pressure to fight for your very existence. He thought he was up against some faceless corporate monolith, a board of stern old men. He had no idea the CEO was a woman, a young woman, and a woman who had just been sitting at his dinner table. The thought made me smile again, a genuinely mischievous grin this time. The plan, which started as a vague idea of revenge, was now a fully formed strategy. It wasn't just about my family anymore. It was about showing them the full catastrophic scope of their misjudgment. I spent the next hour working from my cot. The dim light, the cold air, none of it mattered. My mind was a razor. I drafted replies, gave directives, reviewed reports, and made decisions affecting thousands of employees and millions of dollars. This was my world. This was where I belonged. Not in the suffocating shadow of my family's judgment, not in the pathetic role they had assigned me. I was not their victim anymore. I was the architect of my own life. And tomorrow, on Christmas Day, the curtain would rise on a performance that would shatter their reality. A performance that would finally, irrevocably, redefine me. The warmth of that thought was more powerful than any space heater. It was a fire burning from within, and it was blazing. The next evening, Christmas Day, the house was thick with forced festivity. The scent of roasted turkey mingled with the tension that always simmered just beneath the surface of our family gatherings. I arrived at 7 o'clock sharp, showered and dressed in a simple but elegant black dress. I had spent the day on my phone, finalizing every last detail of the acquisition. My holiday had been a war room. The dining room was aglow, the table groaning under the weight of the feast. Everyone was already there. My father gave me a cursory nod. My mother offered a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Chloe was already holding court, her voice ringing with self-importance. And then Mr. Harrison told me, "Chloe, you're one of our brightest stars. Your insights on this Apex merger are invaluable." She beamed, soaking in the admiration. Her husband David applauded softly. Chloe took a dramatic sip of wine. He's even discussing a promotion. Director of Regional Strategy. It's a massive opportunity. She shot a quick, dismissive glance my way, a silent challenge. I simply took my seat, my face a mask of placid indifference. Mr. Harrison, seated next to my father, was glowing. "She's absolutely right," he boomed. "Chloe is a real asset. This Apex merger, Elena, it's been a whirlwind. Their CEO, though," he chuckled nervously, "is notoriously hard to pin down. A complete enigma." My father grunted in agreement. These big city corporate types. Very secretive. My mother chimed in. "Well, I suppose when you're that successful, you have to be." They began to speculate about the mysterious female CEO no one had ever seen. "Do you think she's ancient?" Chloe mused, a hint of disdain in her voice. "Or just a recluse? Some people just prefer to hide." The barb was aimed directly at me, a subtle jab at my quiet nature. "I hear she's incredibly shrewd," Mr. Harrison offered, a note of genuine respect in his voice. "Decisive, ruthless, some say, but always fair." He was intrigued, desperate to understand the person who now controlled his destiny. I just listened, sipping my wine. The irony was a physical sensation, a tight knot in my stomach. They were all discussing me, guessing about me, and I was sitting right there, an invisible titan in their midst. The conversation meandered, but Chloe kept circling back to her promotion, her brilliant ideas, her essential role in the company's future under Apex. She was puffing herself up, desperate to cement her status, not just with her boss, but with our family. She craved their approval as much as I once had. I watched Mr. Harrison. He clearly valued Chloe, believed her every word. It was a testament to her ability to project a convincing narrative and a testament to his own blind spots. He hadn't dug deep enough. That was the Apex difference. We questioned everything. A small part of me almost felt sorry for him, for how easily people could be swayed by confident illusions. It was a lesson I had learned the hard way and a lesson I was about to teach. My plate was full, but I ate slowly, savoring not just the food, but the unfolding drama. I could feel the energy in the room building, the quiet satisfaction of knowing the powerful secret I held. The moment was drawing closer. As dinner progressed, the room grew warmer, fueled by Chloe's continuous stream of self-praise. She painted a picture of herself as the company's savior, my cost-saving initiatives. Mr. Harrison, she declared, gesturing with her fork, have already streamlined departments, cutting unnecessary staff. Efficiency is everything. Mr. Harrison nodded enthusiastically. She's right. Chloe's restructuring of the RD department alone was brilliant work. My stomach churned. I knew exactly what she was talking about. My analyst's reports had tracked every one of her brilliant decisions. Her RD restructure had actually cost the company over $3 million in the long run by gutting vital research projects and laying off experienced engineers. Her streamlining of client services had led to a 15% drop in customer satisfaction. Every boast she made, I could counter with a cold, hard number from my mental ledger. Suddenly, Mr. Harrison's phone buzzed, a sharp, insistent vibration against the table. He fumbled for it, and his jovial expression evaporated as he saw the screen. Urgent messages from Nina, my assistant. "Please forgive me," he stammered, his voice tight. "This is critical." The Apex office. "I have to take this." He pushed his chair back and practically fled the room, his face pale with anxiety. He'd been chasing the CEO all day, and now the CEO's office was hunting him. It was a calculated move, a deliberate tightening of the screw. Chloe frowned, annoyed at the interruption. Honestly, these massive corporations, so demanding. But her voice lacked its earlier confidence. The focus had shifted. Chloe tried to regain her audience. "Anyway, as I was saying, Mr. Harrison is so thrilled with my performance. He's putting me in charge of the post-merger integration for the entire Eastern region." She smiled, but it was a desperate, pleading look. I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. I knew the truth. Every false claim she made was just digging her own grave deeper, and I was the one holding the shovel. The silence after her last boast was heavy. The festive mood had completely died. I took another slow sip of wine. It tasted like victory. Mr. Harrison returned, his face ashen. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. He slid back into his seat, muttering an apology and avoiding everyone's eyes. He knew, or at least, he was beginning to suspect. "Everything all right, Mr. Harrison?" Chloe asked, trying to sound concerned. He just gave a slight, jerky nod, his gaze fixed on his plate. I decided it was time. The stage was perfectly set. I cleared my throat. It was a small sound, but it cut through the tension like a razor. All eyes turned to me. "What is it, Elena?" Chloe sneered. "Have something to add about the efficiency of the mailroom?" I ignored her. My voice was calm, steady, and held a quiet authority they had never heard from me before. Actually, Chloe won't need to worry about her reports tomorrow, not for the Eastern region or any region. A complete, absolute silence fell over the room. "What are you talking about, Elena?" Chloe's voice was sharp with scorn. "You don't work for Apex. You're a part-time art teacher." I smiled, a real deep smile this time, feeling a powerful satisfaction bloom in my chest. This was the moment. I stood up slowly, deliberately. I reached into my purse and pulled out a sleek metallic ID card. It bore the unmistakable logo of Apex Dynamics. I laid it on the white tablecloth, right next to the gravy boat. It gleamed under the chandelier. The photograph was clear. My name, Elena Vance. And below it, in bold, undeniable letters, Chief Executive Officer. "I am Apex," I said, my voice clear and strong. "The mysterious CEO you've all been gossiping about." The silence that followed was a physical thing. It vibrated in the air. Mr. Harrison looked like he might faint, his eyes darting from the card to my face and back again. Chloe sputtered, her face a mask of pure, contorted disbelief. She snatched the card, scanning it desperately for a flaw. My mother dropped her wine glass. Red wine bled across the white linen like a spreading stain. "But you're just a teacher," she whispered, her voice a broken, fragile thing. 1 class a semester, I corrected her gently, because I believe education is important. The rest of my time, I paused, looking directly at Chloe, whose face was a storm of shock and dawning horror. I run Apex. And speaking of which, Chloe, those staff members you denied contracts to, the ones you called unnecessary, I personally reviewed their cases and offered them all positions in other Apex departments, at higher salaries. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. The color had drained completely from her face. They're all thriving, I added, a small, knowing smile on my lips. Turns out they were very necessary. You just couldn't see it. The truth hung in the air, heavy and irrefutable. Their world had just been turned upside down. The quiet, insignificant sister, the one who belonged in the garage, was gone. In her place stood the CEO, the silent force who owned their world. The silence was absolute, and it was, finally, my victory. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating, broken only by the steady drip of red wine onto the polished hardwood floor. My mother stared at the spreading stain as if it were a mortal wound. Mr. Harrison finally found his voice, a weak, confused whisper. But the calls. Your assistant, Nina. She said you were in Zurich. The humiliation was washing over his face in waves. The person whose calls he had been desperately chasing had been sitting across from him the whole time, sleeping in his host's garage. Chloe, however, had moved past shock into a raw, guttural rage. This is a trick. You're lying, Elena. You can't be Apex. Her voice was shrill, desperate. She was still clutching the ID card, her knuckles white, as if trying to will it into being a fake. It's not a trick, Chloe, I said, my voice cutting through her hysteria with chilling calm. It's the truth. A truth you were too busy looking down on me to ever see. My father, who had been silent for so long, finally spoke, his voice rough. Elena? Is this real? He looked at me with a dawning bewilderment, a flicker of something new in his eyes, respect or maybe just shame. It's real, Dad, I confirmed. But the teacher thing, my mother stammered, still stuck on the first lie she had told herself about me. You told us you were struggling. Why would you? She couldn't finish the question. The idea that I, her less-than daughter, could possess such power and have kept it hidden was a paradigm she couldn't process. I said I taught 1 class a semester, Mom. Which I do. The struggling part was your assumption, not my reality. I turned my attention back to Chloe. Her face was a thundercloud of resentment and fear, the fear of exposure, the fear of being proven wrong. Those employees, she spat, her voice laced with venom. They were dead weight. You just threw money away. No, Chloe, I countered, my voice steady as steel. They were talented people you dismissed because you only see numbers, not potential. My reports track every single one of your cost-saving initiatives. I know the actual losses they incurred. I know the long-term damage you did to the very company you claimed to be saving. Her eyes widened. The full weight of my words finally hit her. Her promotion, her reputation, it was all built on a foundation of lies that I now held the evidence to. You denied people essential resources, I continued, my voice cold and analytical. You cut budgets for critical software, telling them to do more with less. Do you know how many talented engineers quit out of sheer frustration because they felt unheard and undervalued? She was trapped. She knew I had the data. I personally reached out to many of them, I revealed, not as the CEO, but as someone who saw their worth. They are now integral parts of Apex, contributing to the very success you were just praising. My words hung in the air, a final, undeniable indictment of her character. She had built her career by stepping on others, and I, the one she had stepped on the most, had been watching the entire time. My parents looked on in stunned silence. My father stared at his hands. My mother just stared at me, her expression a mixture of awe and profound regret. The years of neglect, the casual cruelty, the banishment to the garage, it was all replaying in their minds, reframed by this new, shattering reality. They had underestimated me, and now they were facing the consequences. I looked around the room one last time. I had said everything that needed to be said. There was nothing left for me here. The desperate need for their approval, once a gaping hole in my soul, had finally scarred over. It had been replaced by a quiet, unshakable sense of self. I took a deep, steadying breath. "I won't be staying in the garage tonight," I announced, my gaze sweeping over my family. There was no malice in my voice, just a simple statement of fact. "I have a suite at the Four Seasons." I paused, letting the name of the luxury hotel hang in the air, a symbol of everything they thought I could never be. Then I delivered the final, definitive blow, which, I added quietly, I happen to own. Mr. Harrison gasped audibly. Chloe made a strangled, choking sound. My mother looked like she might shatter. My father simply stared, his mouth agape. I turned and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I walked with a quiet, unshakable dignity. Each step was a step away from their judgment, away from the cold of the garage, away from a lifetime of being made to feel small. I stepped out into the crisp Christmas night. The air felt clean, light. The burden of their misunderstanding was finally gone. And in its place, I felt a thrilling, exhilarating freedom. If you believe that what you see on the surface is never the whole story, hit like, subscribe, and share a time you proved everyone wrong in the comments below. End of story.